Confessions movie is up and running. The collective are assembled in front of me, and tonight's tale comes from Emma. Thank you for tonight's confession. You can confess online, or you can send us an email. Dear Father Simon and the Holy Order, I am writing to ask your absolute forgiveness for the sin I am about to confess. I have a big sister, Jayne, who is, shall we say, a bit of a control freak, especially when it comes to her car. About 10 years ago, she treated herself to a new car, who she called Hercules. It had that lovely shiny new smell and was pristine. She wouldn't let us eat or drink in her new car, even on those long trips from London to Cornwall, where our family still live. We starved to death on those trips so that she could keep Hercules in mint condition. However, I was carless. She did let me borrow the car on some occasions, and I felt honoured and overwhelmed that she trusted me enough to use her prized possession. One day, my other sister, who lives with Jayne, asked me to take some garden sacks of rubbish to the refuse tip using Jayne's car. It was the only mode of transport. When our older sister had asked Jayne, she of course refused to put such unclean, disgusting items in her car and said no. I wrestled with my conscience and thought, okay, if I put lots of plastic sheeting down in the boot, what harm could it possibly do? She would never know, and so, as any good sister would, I helped out and got rid of the horrible garden waste, ensuring that the car looked clean on my return. Surely nothing can go wrong. That weekend, I borrowed Hercules to go and visit my boyfriend. After a lovely romantic night, I kissed him goodbye at the door of his flat, and he watched from the top window as I got into the car and turned the ignition on. Then he watched as I leapt from the car in total shock. "What's wrong?" he called out the window, seeing my aghast expression and my now pale complexion. "There's a rat in the car!" I screamed. Yes, as I put the key in the ignition, a chunky, dirty grey rat ran across the dashboard, scaring the life out of me and causing me to leap out of the car. What could I do? My boyfriend came down from his flat, armed with a poking device, which he then puts in brackets, tennis bat. I think it's probably a racket, isn't it?
Yes.
Or it could be a table tennis. It could be a table tennis bat, I suppose.
Yeah.
To save me from my predicament. The rat had disappeared from view, and in the pitch black night was hard to find. I made my boyfriend sit in the car with the door shut to see if he could hear it squeak.
Right, fine.
Which he did, with his feet up on the seat in case the blighter ran up his jeans leg. We poked and prodded under the seats, looked in the boot, searched for about 45 minutes. Alas, the rat was nowhere to be found. He or she must have jumped out and made his escape when we weren't looking. I decided to drive home, petrified that it may reappear and jump out at me, causing an accident. Are you all right there, Mother Superior?
Oh, I feel ill.
My boyfriend and I swore to secrecy about the rat invader, as it obviously came from the garden rubbish bag, and if Jayne found out, she really would have killed me dead, and never, to use this interesting expression, and never let me borrow her car again. This would have been terrible, as my boyfriend and I would have had to endure forced separation. No, secrecy was our only option. The rat story will never be told. Anyway, it had gone from the car and was probably enjoying a free existence on a grassy knoll somewhere, or so we thought. Over the following weeks, little gnaw marks appeared on the locks of the front doors and the upholstery of Hercules. Jayne asked what had caused these little scratches on the locks and the seats. I said I had no idea. Maybe she knocked it or scratched it with her handbag or something like that. And then she started to comment on Hercules having a funny smell. She thought it strange and bought a vast array of car fresheners to mask this peculiar smell. "Can you smell it?" she asked every time I got in the car. I always said, "No, definitely not, can't smell a thing." This was a lie, as it smelt rotten and foul. That weekend, Jayne deposited her winter clothes into storage, as she often did, because she had lots of clothes, and we all enjoyed a lovely summer. Now we fast forward 6 months. It's getting colder. As the winter arrived with its icy chill, Jayne went up to storage to retrieve her winter clothes, and as she pulled a bag from a high shelf, a very smelly, very stiff, decomposing and very dead rat fell from the bag onto her head. Jayne screamed and did a funny dance as it had got stuck in her hair. Then picked up this rotting rodent and marched to the manager of the self-storage depot to make a complaint about the facility being riddled with vermin. The manager took her complaint very seriously and called out the exterminators. They conducted a thorough search of the facility but found no trace of any rats or other vermin anywhere within their confines. But the evidence was overwhelming, and he made enormous and elaborate apologies to my sister. I have never ever confessed to anyone about taking that rubbish to the tip and unwittingly starting this chain of events. I'd like to apologise to Jayne, to the exterminators, and the poor downtrodden manager. the self-storage for everything. Most importantly, to the poor rat who met his untimely end in a hatchback car and not in a beautiful field or drain running free. I don't think we've had a rat-based confession. I'm sure there are plenty more to come. Self-storage or sisters who are control freaks. These are all very welcome. What do you say, Sister?
I love that confession. That is superb. So the rat basically died in the car and then got tangled in with the clothes and then went into storage. Is that what we think happened?
That's pretty much what happened.
God, that is just awful for the rat, isn't it? And awful for Emma to know that the rat was probably in the car and running around.
I like the idea of the dead rat falling into her hair.
It's just terrible. And if you have a thing about rats, this is a truly awful story.
It's a bad one.
But obviously she was trying to help her other sister out, and she was horrified when she found out about the rat. I mean, none of this was intentional, and I don't think I would have told my sister if she was such a control freak and so obsessed by her car.
Just motivated by lust for her boyfriend.
I don't think so.
Is it not? Okay, fair enough.
It was motivated by wanting to help her other sister.
Right.
So I think that even though it was really awful for her sister to have a rat fall in her hair and for the self-storage guy to have to get the exterminators in, you're forgiven, Emma.
The Mother Superior.
I think there was a bit of lust involved, wasn't there? There was a bit of having a little bit of hanky-panky at some point and trying to impress the boyfriend. But having said that, I really don't think I can forgive you. I really don't, because if I found a rat, if I'd have lent my car to someone and then I knew that there'd been a rat in it and that it had gnawed away at some of my leather interior, I would not be very happy, I have to say. So I think it was a bit cowardly of you not to confess, this has made me feel really quite ill, this whole story. But I wouldn't really forgive you. I'm sorry.
I did like the fact. Can you smell this? No, can't. No, definitely. It's not decomposing vermin.
Rat.
Definitely not. Brother Matthew, you're made of stronger stuff.
It's not, I don't think it's very fair to label the sister a control freak just because she won't allow you to use your car and then have a rat run around in the car.
You can eat any food from London to Cornwall.
What on earth is going on with this poor girl that she's driving? She's been driving around in this car and there's been a rat in the car the whole time. She'd have gone nuts. I tell you what, I bet if she's heard this, she'll recognise this story straight away. Oh yeah, I do remember the gnaw marks on the door. Not many of us have got gnaw marks on our doors. And that smell, and that thing falling on my head. And it turns out it wasn't the storage place at all. It was my own sister who's labelled me a control freak. Shame on you.
So not
forgiven. Definitely not.
Thank you very much.